Hey everyone, I'm Tony Garnock-Jones. It's March the 30th, 2021, and I'm going to walk through some of the experimentation that I've been doing recently with nested namespaces in Squeak Smalltalk. This work builds on the environments for Squeak, which I think are originally due to Colin Putney, with some recent work by Jakob Reschke. I've made a few small additions to environment itself and a little subclass called Namespace, which allows one to expose environments via arbitrary ordinary variable references if you choose, and it doesn't change anything about how environments work otherwise, so existing uses should remain unchanged. I've also added a variant of browser that exposes and shows these accessible environments in a hierarchy and allows you to manage their imports and exports, and here it is. So this is environment browser, inheriting from class browser. And it's a very thin veneer over the existing environment, over the underlying environment machinery. You can see that compared to the default browser, it has a couple of extra panels. This one here on the left is actually a tree. I mean, there's only one entry in it, but it's a tree of environments. The idea is to take the instances of environment. Environment has a class-side variable called instances. Take those instances as well-known roots for the tree. Environment well-known instances. At the moment there's just the one. You can see it's just got a Smalltalk in there with the default environment, and in there we see information about the environment, the declarations, its bindings and so forth, its imports and exports. So the browser takes that array of well-known instances as its roots of the tree. From those roots it recursively scans each environment for global variables within that environment that are also instances of class environment, and the scan is part of class environment itself. So if I go to class environment, we can see here we've got all sub-namespaces, which collects things using this method namespace tree do, which is here, and it's really just a simple depth first traversal of the tree of namespaces, and of course it has a method for selecting namespaces, which is all elements in this environment that are environments themselves, whose environment nominal parent is oneself, so that we can have a graph but have it come out as a tree. Anyway, so the idea here is that in the environment browser we've got Smalltalk in there, and at the moment there are no others. The other panel, just here on the left, below the tree of environments, it shows the imports and exports of the environment. Here you can see the default environment, Smalltalk, imports all of its own bindings so that they're visible to its own classes, so the array can see object, object can see array, and so forth. And it exports all of its bindings to any other environments that might import from Smalltalk. So let's create another namespace or environment here under Smalltalk. I'll just right click in this panel. We see we've got a few options. We can open a workspace that's scoped within this environment so that we can explore running code in any given environment. We can rename environments, but not the special root environment. We can explore it, which just gets an explorer on the object itself. If it were anything other than a root environment, we would be able to unlink it from the tree and delete all of its contents. And finally we can create a sub-environment. So this is what we're going to do now. Let's call it ns1, namespace 1. And here you see we have ns1 in the tree as a child of Smalltalk. And if we open a workspace in Smalltalk, we can see that ns1 now evaluates to an environment, ns1. There it is. So now let's try doing something in ns1. Let's create a class called string. Now if we were to do this in the main environment, of course this would be crazy. So let's say we have a string, it's going to be a string of wool, in category demo, extends object with a single instance variable. Let's see, there we go, string, class string. Let's give it a method, print on a stream. Next put all, I am a ball of wool. length meters long. Okay, that looks good. On the class side, let's have something for creating a piece of string. So let's see, new of size, return self new length size. Yes, and of course, it's a bit fiddly. Right, so now let's see. If we open a workspace in the namespace Smalltalk and we type string new 3, we get a Smalltalk string, which is a piece of text and has 3 slots for characters that are currently unfilled in it. You can see those little rectangles, that's fine. But if we now open a workspace on environment ns1 and write string new 3, okay, there's going to be a problem there because of course I didn't create the accessors, so let's define some. So here we have length and integer. Let's see, length equals an integer, save it, proceed. And look, we got our ball of wool 3 meters long from the same piece of source code string new of 3. Clearly showing us that string is bound to something different in this other environment. So let's just rename this environment to fabric. Okay, that's good. And let's create another little environment here under Smalltalk rather than under fabric. NS2. Right, so now we've got Smalltalk, Fabric and NS2 as our environments. Let's import Fabric into NS2. So here we see that NS2 at the moment isn't exporting anything. It's importing its own bindings so that its own definitions are visible to other definitions in NS2. It's also importing all of the Smalltalk bindings so that they're automatically visible to all of the classes defined here. So we're going to add another one. We're going to import from Fabric. So let's import from a specific environment with a prefix. So we'll import from Fabric and we'll say Fabric as the prefix to add. Okay, here we see we've got a new import entry here saying import from environment Fabric, every binding, mapping it to Fabric preceded with that binding. So now let's try opening a workspace here. Cool, we'll say string new 3, and we should get the one from Smalltalk because we didn't say it with the prefix. Sure enough we do, that's good. Fabric string new 3 because we've got the prefix on the ones we imported. And oh, it didn't work. Now, the reason it didn't work is that we didn't export from Fabric. So let's export it from Fabric. So we'll go to Fabric here and we'll add an export all from self. Oh, what did I add? An import all from self, whoops. Let's add an export all. There we go, export all. And then there are some funny little bugs. Let's again try a Fabric string new 3. Still doesn't work. There are some bugs in, I think, the underlying environment implementation where it doesn't properly track change notifications. So let's try redoing the import. We'll just delete that import there and re-add it. Import all from environment, adding prefix. Fabric. Okay, now we should be able to get a ball of wool by using the prefix. There we have it. There's one more way that we can create instances of our ball of wool, and that is, if you recall, these things are arranged as a hierarchy, and Fabric here, being a child of Smalltalk, is available within Smalltalk as name Fabric. So let's just quickly demonstrate that. We'll open a workspace in Smalltalk. We won't be able to see Fabric string, nope, but we can see Fabric. And furthermore, we can see Fabric string. And we can ask for a new one. And because we're importing from Smalltalk without any prefix, as well as from Fabric with a prefix in NS2, then it works in NS2 to talk about Smalltalk things directly, about Fabric things, so long as we mention them with a prefix. And because Fabric, the name itself, is just a variable within the Smalltalk environment, we should be able to refer to it here, and indeed we can. So we can say Fabric string, and we can say Fabric string new 3 here as well. So now the next thing I want to show, the final thing, is just what happens if we actually remove Fabric, unlink the environment here. this is just a sort of placeholder little message. This is actually a really dangerous thing. It's going to throw away all of the classes in this environment, no matter how many there are, and there's no undo or anything, so let's just delete it. Sure, fine, no problem. Now in NS2, there are still some bugs here. We see that the import from the now non-existent fabric environment is still valid. The thing is, it is still valid, it's just no longer in the namespace hierarchy. The object is not visible in the browser, but it's still, it's not going to be garbage collected or anything. It's still actually being strongly held by this reference. So we can see that string new 3 works, fabric string new 3 still works, but this one, fabric string new, will not work. And that's because the binding fabric has been removed from Smalltalk by the unlinking. So now I'll show you another bug. If I remove this policy now, and so now it should just be, NS2 should be importing only from itself and from Smalltalk. So we should see success with string new, failure with the third kind of thing, fabric string new, because like I said, fabric is no longer visible in Smalltalk. Okay, that's good. And this one we should expect to fail as well, but it doesn't fail, and that's because, again, there are some bugs in the environment where it doesn't track change notifications properly. Ideally, that would have been removed when we removed the import policy from NS2. So that's all I wanted to show you today. I hope that's been helpful and sort of give you an idea of what I've been playing with. Thanks very much for watching.